Hello, everyone. So, now welcome to our week 5 lesson. And this is our part 1 for this week five's lesson. And when we have our class, I'm going to give you an activity. But for now, I would like you to understand what context means. So, when you say context, it originates from the notion of weaving together, or you're trying to unite all the words of the text in order to create a meaning coming from its word context, which also means in oral communication as communication situations. So in literary text, it is also identical because context is defined as the circumstances that form the setting of events, statements, or ideas, and in a ways of which it can be fully understood and assessed. So basically, when we say context, what is this text all about? What are the situations that form this story that makes it understandable and makes it what do we call this? Makes it having its own substance. So when you read a literary piece, it may contribute to the production of the author and the reception of a reader as they appreciate and explore. So, class, when we try to understand or give meaning to the text, we cannot actually define it just based from what the author wanted us to understood. Why? Because we have different kinds of contexts. And today we are going to explore that. We have our what we call the context of the text through an author and the context of the text based from a reader. And we also have this historical context itself. The context of the text, how the text is being viewed in history, so it will be very different because we have different kinds of context or how we try to understand or put the context into our own as a reader, as an author, or as an environment itself. Let's go. So first we have the writer's context. So it's actually how the author put meaning into the text, how the author views the text itself through own life values, his own life values, assumptions, gender, race, sexual orientation, political and economic issues. So everything that the author wants to reflect himself to the text, what his views about. So this actually affects how the author puts meaning and puts value to his own writing. So we call that writer's context. Remember that. Next, we have the reader's context. So, when the reader has the previous reading experience, values assumptions, political and economic issues, so we call it reader's context. Remember that. If you are being affected of how you mean the text based from your past experiences, past understanding, previous readings, that is reader's context. For example, you like reading graphical novels and you were given a new type of literary material to you. For example, you have digifiction. So you will try to compare what a digifiction looks like to your previous reading materials. And we cannot deny that how you read the text will be affected by your previous reading materials or your previous judgments of your literary genres that you have read before. Again, if you judge or put meaning to the text, the new text that you're reading right now, according to your previous readings, previous reading experiences, your own values, your own assumptions, not the author's, then we have the reader's context. Okay. So next is social context and sociocultural. So this is what I mean when we say um, the environment itself affects or the community affects how the text has its own meaning. So it actually features the society in which the characters live and which the author's text was produced. So for example, Noli Me Tangere, it's produced in the Philippines. It's produced during that time when the Spaniards colonized Filipinos and we are being martyrs in our history for at least 333 years. So everything that happened there, the social context and the social cultural environment that will actually affect how this is being viewed as a text itself. Okay, so now let's try to unravel what is going on in a poem. So, when we try to include context when understanding a poem and when writing a poem, we have what we call the structure. When I say structure of the poem, it refers to words that are put together to arrange such as that they make sense itself. So if you choose these words, rhyming words if you like, if you use these highfalutin words, if you put these words, this irony, this figurative languages, in order for you to put meaning into your text, we have that structure. And another one, if you arrange that, for example, 4 lines, 14 words in I'm sorry, 12 words in a line, and you have to follow that throughout the stanza. So that's a structure. For imagery, it's you're trying to create a picture in the reader's mind by using words that appeal to the senses. Mind you, class, simple terms to understand imagery, you are trying to use words that would make your readers imagine that that is really happening. So, in simple words, you are going to use this descriptive words, adjectives for an instance, so that you will be able to create a picture in the minds of your readers. Next is the literary techniques. So these are the methods that the authors or the writers of the literary piece used to convey to what they wanted to impart to the reader. For example, you use flashback. So you put a situation wherein you are going to go back to the past and discover situations like that in the past. So that's a literary technique. Other literary techniques that we can also use are flash forward, and that is the opposite of flashback. So you're going to the future. You're going fast to the future. Another one, we have foreshadowing. So if you wanted to give the clue of what will happen next, you can use the literary technique foreshadowing. So Deus ex machina. So you use godlike characters to help the protagonist. We call that Deus ex machina. So let's try to write. This is a spelling. Okay. I cannot add this one. Ooh, why can't I write? Wait, here. What's happening? Okay. This one. Deus ex machina. So, class, these literary techniques actually included godlike characters to help the protagonist or the character of the story of a poem. For example, for the Biag ni Lamang. So instead of Lamang died because he was chopped into pieces, because of the Diwata or the Diwani, Lamang were able to live because of that. So if you are confused why I'm talking about Lamang is and we are talking about poem, remember Biag di Lamang is an epic. An epic is not a story in structure. It's actually a long heroic poem. I hope that's clear that an epic is a narrative poem itself and not just a story under prose. It's a poem, a long narrative poem. So that's why I gave an example of a literary technique, Deus ex machina, for Biag ni Lamang. Okay. Okay, let's continue for your poetry time. So when we go back to the class, we're going also to make two stanza poem for your performance task. Thank you so much for listening for the part one of our week number 5. Thank you so much and have a great day.